Our Pope has taken to tweeting. And just 2 days ago, on Valentine's Day, he tweeted to the young people of the world, "Dear young people, do not be afraid to marry. A faithful and fruitful marriage will bring you happiness." Couple after couple stand up here and pledge a forever love. It is a powerful and very emotional moment in any marriage ceremony, or whenever promises like that are made between two people toward a forever love. In the vows they pronounce here, they promise two basic things: to stay together forever and to be sexually exclusive. Two very noble and courageous things they promise. But you and I both know, in season and out, that love, true love, is so much more than just keeping those two basics. We all know marriages where perhaps neither one of them strayed from that exclusive sexual commitment, and who stayed together for decades, but their love has stalled, and it's not even very much fun to be around them anymore. The marriage that only does the basics is not alive or life-giving. As wonderful and as courageous as those basics are, there's still something incredibly important that seems to be missing here. Today's gospel is about the basics that love demands in any relationship in our lives, any relationship. And so much more that is necessary if love is to be more than just surviving, but actually thrive and flourish. In this gospel tonight, Jesus says, "I have not come to abolish the basics, but to bring them to fulfillment." In other words, the basics still stand in any relationship in our lives, including our relationship with God. But in any relationship, including that relationship with God, there is just more to it than that. Listen to some of the basics that Jesus highlights in the gospel you just heard. He does it by a phrase that really catches your attention. You've heard it said, but I say to you. You've heard it said, but I say to you. And he begins with this image. You've heard it said to your ancestors, "You shall not kill." But I say to you, when are you going to start dealing with your angers? When are you going to start paying attention to what your angers are doing to you and how your angers are dictating your behaviors and making you do things you don't even want to do or say things you don't even want to say? I say to you, learn from those angers. Figure out how to live with them so that they don't run your life. You heard it said that you shall not commit adultery. But I say to you, if you even look at each other with lust, that is to say, if you look at each other as one-dimensional, if you turn the mystery of a multifaceted diamond of a human being into one facet only, if you thingify a human being for your own satisfaction ever on any level, That's adultery. You've heard it said, do not make a false promise. But I say to you, stop lying. Stop exaggerating to get attention. Stop twisting the truth so that you don't have to take responsibility for your life. Because after a while, you won't even know what it means to be an honest person anymore. You've heard it said, love your neighbor, hate your enemy. I say to you, forgive and forgive and forgive again, and keep forgiving. You see, every one of those examples is about one thing. It's about going the extra mile in a relationship. It's about going the extra mile, not just doing the basics, but fulfilling the basics. And every relationship in our lives has what that extra mile is, and it looks different for each of those relationships. The basics for me, the extra mile for me rather, with you might be different than it is for the person next to you, or for your spouse, or your friends, or at work. The extra mile is different for each of us. And what it means for me to go that extra mile in relationship with my God is going to be different too than perhaps it is for you or for the person sitting next to you. It looks different for each of us. And each of us has to figure that out. After a conversation not too long ago about marriage and sort of these kinds of things, a young husband and dad wrote me, and he said this: I am constantly tempted in my marriage, tempted to just do the basics. And every time I ask those questions about what the basic minimum is, I'm reminded of how marriage works. What I put into it is what I get out of it. Because after all, I'm called to help her to heaven too. I know that when I make a choice for her, it's a choice for us. And when she makes a choice for me, it's a choice for us. What I mean is that doing something or not doing something to love her, even if it is a sacrifice for me to do it, brings a certain joy with it, because I know it's going to help her feel truly loved and accepted. And from a more transformational point of view, those sacrifices I make to love her teach me how to love more like Christ. Every sacrificial act of love I make towards my wife teaches me how to love like that outside our marriage as well. There's something so redeeming about that. I got to thinking about that extra mile, and I got to thinking this past week, gosh, I wonder if there's such a thing as an extra mile. I think there is. I think the extra mile is not letting my helping them, my loving them, keep them from doing the work they must do themselves, on themselves. The work they must do for themselves if they're going to be freer tomorrow than they were today. They have to be really and truly flourishing and growing if this love is going the extra mile. What am I talking about? Let me just say that if you ever find your spouse or your friend the same person with the same issues that they've always had, perhaps love's red flag should be waved. Because the one we follow, this Jesus, wants us to do more than that, and tells us that love is caring enough to know that they can be so much more than that, and to not want to leave them as broken as we found them in any area of their life, so that they will be well long after we're gone. So that they will be well long after we're gone. It's a difference, you see, my friends, between enabling them to stay as they've always been and empowering them. The extra mile is an empowering love. That's the extra mile. And if you can't find that love in your life right now, anywhere else, I can tell you this. I can tell you that the CSC will try its best to love you that way, if you let us. You see, it's that old, the letter of the law versus the spirit of the law. And that has everything to do with marriage. It has everything to do with every relationship of friendship in our lives. Being married well and being deep friends is all about fulfilling the spirit of the law, going beyond the words of commitment to a deeper interest in and investment in your partner's well-being. It's not just about not sleeping with someone else. And it's not just about not leaving. It's about you finding your fulfillment in helping someone else find theirs. It's about you finding your fulfillment in helping someone else find theirs. Jesus is saying the law is important, the basics are important, but they're not enough. It's true at work too. People who do the work they have to do and do the bare minimum are not very happy with their work. You students, you can do the basics all the time and get by. But you know what it's like to be a student who doesn't just do the minimum. And if it's true of our human relationships of marriage and friendship, is it not also true of my relationship with God? After all, faith is a relationship. Let me give you an example of that. If to be in relationship with God, God has asked me to get my butt out of bed on a Sunday morning and go to Mass, and if He says that's just the basic requirement of being in a relationship with me, some keep that law, some don't. But it is a basic requirement of that relationship. But so many just do that then and only that. And so they drag their bodies here, but their hearts and their minds are so far away. It's one thing when we get ourselves to Mass to keep the law. The fulfillment of that, though, is to participate wholly and utterly in what is going on here. It's to have our minds engaged, our voices singing, our movements intentional, and our praying sincere. It's to appreciate the community of the people around me here. That would be the fulfillment of that basic law. Some 27 of our students went away yesterday, spent all day Saturday, 10 a.m. to 9 at night, just trying to get deeper into prayer, learning how to pray, and trying it, mostly and in a lot of ways through silence. Tell me, were those 27 students just doing the basics? Nope. Over 100 went on awakening and growth retreats last November. Were they just doing the basics? I don't think so. And when over Christmas break 9 spent their Christmas break in El Salvador serving the poor, or when 14 are preparing to spend this coming spring break working with the poor in this country, or the 27 that are preparing to do this pilgrimage on a 1,000-year-old pilgrimage route in Spain this summer to the bones of St. James, are they just doing the basic? No. They're not. You see, the bare minimum isn't exciting. The bare minimum isn't challenging. The bare minimum doesn't grow me. And the bare minimum doesn't lead to happiness. If I'm mostly making choices for myself in an us relationship, then the us will suffer. And ultimately, so will I. You've heard it said, but I say to you, this I know, to go the extra mile for someone is to grow the extra mile myself.